What is going on, ladies, gentlemen, listeners of the Didn't Ask podcast? Welcome back to this right here podcast, the Didn't Ask podcast. Welcome or welcome back. If this is your first podcast or if this is your 77th podcast, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's welcome here to episode 77 of this right here podcast, the Didn't Ask podcast. I said the Didn't Ask podcast so many times in the past 2 minutes. 1 minute, not even 30 seconds. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry for that. How is everybody doing? I hope you had a good weekend. I certainly did. It was a race weekend. We're finally back after summer break, and oh bloody hell, what a race that was for Max Verstappen. He had to change his engine, or had to change parts of his engine that came outside of the pool that they use. So if you're not familiar with Formula One, with the cars, they have like certain parts that they can exchange X amount of times. So you have like the gearbox, which you can exchange 3 times, and then you have like the engine itself that you can change 3 times, and then you have certain parts that you can change 4 times or 5 times or whatever. But if you go outside of the set amount, then you have to get a penalty. So Max sadly had to take that penalty, especially with the eye on next week, because of course next week it's Zandvoort, and man, that is it's his home race. You know, it's the Netherlands, the Dutch Grand Prix, and he wants to win that, and the team wants to win that, especially because they can win it back to back. He won it last year, of course, when the first time they were doing that circuit. So they really want that circuit win this year. So they were looking ahead, thinking that, hey, if we do the motor replacement right now, we can then take the punishment now and then just drive ahead next week, so we don't really have to exchange any parts anymore. So that's what they did. And while people were saying that, hey, Spa is a very hard track to overtake and it's really going to be hard, Max did it in, I think it was like 10 rounds or whatever the fuck. It was fucking crazy. He started at 14th, chose the soft tire. Very smart, because of course soft tires give you more grip on the track. So he immediately started going forward, and there was some mishaps happening, and then there was like a safety car, which means that all cars again close in together and everybody's basically in the same starting position as they were. And that meant that Max could just overtake even more. And I believe, like I said, it took about 10. I think it took like 8 rounds for him to basically come back to the podium, and then it took like another couple to get him to first place, and then he basically was there for the rest of the race, like he always does. And it is absolutely crazy how fast this guy is, because how the hell can you start at 14th and then work your way up to being, I think he was like at the end of the race, he was like 20 seconds ahead of everybody else. Or like if the person that was behind him, and that was his teammate, which is fucking crazy. So they had the same fucking car, basically. And he was still 20 to 30 seconds ahead of him. That's absolutely crazy, especially when he started, like I said, all the way in the back. But yeah, so that was a really fun weekend for that. There was no UFC, which is a little bit sad, but next week UFC, or this week I should say, UFC is going to be in Paris, which is going to be really fun. That means that I'm going to watch UFC live for the first time in a little while, because it doesn't really happen that often that UFC is live and viewable at a reasonable hour over here, because it's normally either at like 3 in the morning, or sometimes it starts at like 11 or 12, when it's just like, oh, that's kind of reasonable. But then when the clock strikes 1, I'm just out. I have to pass out and have to sleep. So then I will watch the rest in the morning. But now we're live from Paris, France, which means that the times are going to be fantastic. I believe it starts at like 7 or 8. So that's a really good time, and we're going to watch that. Hopefully True Jordy is going to do a live stream, because that's always really fun to have his commentary with the broadcast, even though it doesn't really need to, because normally the broadcasting team is very, very good, because we have Daniel Cormier, we have Dominic Cruz, we have Michael Bisping. Like, we have so many good guys on commentary right now, Paul Felder. So if any of them are on, it should be a really fun and good show. But hey, it's always fun to have True Jordy do the commentary. Speaking of that, True Jory doing commentary, he did the commentary for the KSI fight that was Saturday night, and holy shit, I was stressed the fuck out. But luckily, that stress was for nothing, because his opponents were absolute dweebs. We had KSI first on taking Swarms, which is another rapper that they had some kind of weird beef, and Swarms called him out a couple of months ago, and then KSI was just like, well, I'm gonna take you up on that offer, I'm gonna write you down as a backup fighter, so if anything fucked up happens, you're gonna be in there. And then something fucked up happened, and Alex Wasabi pussied out, and that meant that Swarms had to come in. Swarms did a really good job in selling the fight, even though everybody knew that, hey, this guy is not a fighter. He played soccer or football, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And he is a rapper, so he's not a fighter. I don't know what the fuck you think he's doing, but he sold the fight well. He stepped in there, but got clowned out very quickly and was completely on his fucking bike, just running around the ring. So that wasn't really a fun thing to see, but you know, it was for KSI to get the ring rust off. He had to get his reps in, make sure that he gets in there, knows how to deal with the pressure of first of organizing the event, but then of course starring as the biggest star on that event as well. So he knocked out, TKO'd kinda Swarms in the second round, I should say, not the first round, because Swarms was on his bike running very well. And then at the end of the night, JJ or KSI came in action against Alcaraz Pineda, I think his name is. And the guy was supposed to be like a professional fighter, but he was really the bottom of the barrel of professional fighting. This man was getting hit like really hard, so hard that he was saying that JJ was hitting him on his back and in the back of his head. Like JJ was just like completely hitting him with nice hooks and nice body shots that were completely legal, and he was just complaining. So it took a little bit for JJ to get him out of there, but he did it in the third round. So, you know, on one side, actually, like I said, it's really good. It's for him to get the cobwebs off and to get that more ring time. So it's all about experience, you know what I mean? And the only way you're going to get experience is by doing it. So that was my weekend. I hope you had a good weekend as well. But this is not a podcast where I talk to you about the weekend. No. I talk to you about the most popular questions of the Ask Reddit and the Am I the Asshole subreddits. So let's jump into the first question of today, coming from the user Twilight Truth. And they ask, what actor will always be associated with that one role, no matter how many others they do? To me, this is very much a thing about Ezra Miller. The first thing I saw Ezra Miller in, at least I recognized him in, was We Need to Talk About Kevin, which is about a kid that goes absolutely insane and becomes a serial killer and whatever the fuck, which especially now, isn't far from the fucking truth at this point with Ezra Miller. So that is definitely a thing that will always stick out in my head. And that's why I never really liked him as the Flash, because he always was, like, his Flash interpretation is always very weird. And he's very, like, antisocial, very autistic type. And it is an interpretation of the Flash, and especially in the DCEU, it's the extended universe, it's the multiverse. So there are so many people and iterations of the Flash in that world, so it doesn't really bother me that much. And that's the thing that we always have with, like, Batman as well, where we have had multiple Batman in our lifetime. Like, we had the Michael Keaton Batman, and then we had the Christopher Nolan Batman, and then we have the Ben Affleck Batman. And so there are so many different types of Batman already, so that when there is a new iteration of Batman, it's going to be a little easier for us to digest in comparison to what Marvel is doing, where everything is connected and there is one actor who we have on retainer for fucking 10 years, and when he goes out, he is out and the character doesn't really return. So that is the easiest thing, and that's, I think, that why The Flash was a little easier to swallow, that pill. But still, I think that Ezra Miller is a weird cat, especially, again, like I'm saying right now, with all the charges that are up against him and the weird stories that are being told about him, about his involvement with kids and stuff like that, and grooming and so many weird things. So especially again, like I said, going back to the question asked by user Twilight Truth, what actor will always be associated with that one role, no matter how many others they do? Again, Ezra Miller for me is Kevin from We Need to Talk About Kevin, where he is a fucking psychopath, autistic kid that goes on a fucking murder spree, and he basically is that in everything for me. Like, that's why I don't really like watching Ezra Miller, and that's why I really had an issue watching him in the DCEU. And we're gonna see more of him, yay! And nobody really wants that, so great. Thank you for your question, Twilight Truth. Moving on to the second question of the day, coming from user Macaron Melodic. You're now named Lil plus the object to your left. What's your name? And I'm looking to my left and I see my wallet. So I'm gonna be Lil Wallet. To me, that's a little bit more of a girl's name, I guess. Because it's like the Lil Wallet, that's what they call the female parts. They call them wallets, I believe. So Lil Wallet would be like a good female rapper, but I'll take it, Lil Wallet. It could also just be a reference to my bank account that I don't really have that much money, so I am Lil Wallet. Don't need that much money to fill it up, I guess. I don't fucking know. I thought that question was short and sweet, so very funny. Thank you for your question, Macaron Melodic. You're now named Lil plus the object to your left. What's your name? Lil Wallet, and I'm always here to grab your cash. Thank you very much for your question. Already moving on to the third question of the day, coming from user Phantom_Avenger. What famous celebrity is actually still a decent human being? There are so many celebrities that are still a great human being, and I feel like the bad apples are the ones that, of course, stick out because, again, we talked about Ezra Miller a second ago, where he is just such a terrible human being at this point. And they are going on this fucking apology tour for him so they can promote The Flash, and nobody is really interested in that. Nobody really wants to see that. But there are still so many actors that are very good at their job and still are very nice. And one of them being Abby Jacobs. I just saw a interview of her, and she is such a sweetheart. And I just read yesterday that she is engaged and is going to get married. So that's very cool for her. She found the love of her life in a very lovely woman, which very cool. And I, as a fan of Abby Jacobs, am very happy for her because that was in her book that she was basically trying to figure herself out and being like, hey, am I gay? Am I bisexual? What is my sexuality? What's going on? What do I feel most comfortable with? And what am I feeling most safe with? And seeing her happy with a fiance is very fucking cool. And again, she is cool. She does a lot of voice acting as well now, where she does like kids cartoons and stuff like that. Because she did Mitchell's versus the Machines, which was absolutely fantastic. She's, I believe, also in like Lego movies where she's like Lego Batman or stuff like that. In those type of things, she is in those as well, I believe. So that's really fucking cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Abby Jacobs, and I feel like she's doing a very good job. Other celebrities that are still decent human beings, I don't know. I mean, again, it is mostly the fucking rotten apples that stick out the most. So I think that most people that you would probably meet are decent human beings, even though everybody has probably some skeletons in their closet about shit they've done or said or whatever. But I feel like at some point you cannot hold people accountable for everything they say, right? Again, there is a difference between somebody making a mistake and then somebody being purposefully hurtful. And one of these examples from the past weekend is Sydney Sweeney, who was celebrating her mom's 60th birthday, and she posted some pictures, and then her dad, I believe, had like a American flag with like the blue line on it, and people started falling over that. And the internet isn't the internet if it doesn't do what the internet does, and that is dig even deeper. So they figured out that she only posted that one picture, but her brothers or something like that posted other pictures where you saw people with red, basically like MAGA heads, but it said make 60 great again, I believe, which of course isn't really that smart of an idea. And then people started attacking Sydney Sweeney for being a bigot and being a racist and whatever the fuck, which I feel like that is a little bit too far. I guess I don't know the family Like they're somewhere from the middle of the fucking country. They're Trump supporters. I don't fucking know. I think that you're probably very stupid if you're a Trump supporter, or at least this is more of a hindsight thing to me. Like up front, every political person says that they're going to give you the world, but eventually they end up giving you nothing, really, type things. So again, I get it when you're looking at it from the front type things where it's just like, hey, he says A, B, and C, and he is Trump, so therefore I'm gonna believe it because he already did A, B, and C, and therefore I'm gonna believe it even more when he says A, B, and C is gonna happen for you as well, type things. I get that, but hindsight being 2020, I think that if you're still a Trump supporter and specifically a Trump supporter, then I feel like there is something wrong with you in some way, shape, or form. So, again, them having the MAGA hats, if they do or do not support Donald Trump, I don't really care. I don't think that it's a very smart idea to have that because you know that like you purposefully did this, right? And you purposefully did it because it has some sort of resignation for you. Like I don't fucking know. There is something weird. Like you could have done the make 60 great again hat, but then made the hat blue. I think that would solve a whole bunch of your fucking problems because then it's at least not referring to the Trump thing, or at least it is referring to but not blatantly, so it would be a easier pill to swallow. But yeah, like the shit that they did, red hats with MAGA and then the blue line with the American flag, like the Blue Lives Matter thing, it wasn't that smart to post that on social media. But I don't think that Sydney Sweeney is the one that should be attacked for this. It's just that's her family, right? And family is something you cannot really do much about. And maybe she went in and went like, hey, I don't like this, we shouldn't do this, but everybody else was just like, we're gonna do this is fine. And that's why she purposefully posted a picture that none of these hats were visible, and she was like, hey, we're not gonna get issues with this. And then she got issues with it, so that's very sad. So yeah, going back to the question asked by user Phantom_average, what famous celebrity is actually still a decent human being? I think that Abby Jacobson I have called her Abby Jacobs, which is really bad for me. Especially like I'm saying like, oh, I'm a big Abby Jacobson fan. And I said Abby Jacobs. Abby Jacobson, I think, is a fantastic human being. She's really funny, and she found love in a beautiful woman. So that's very good for her. And I think that she is a great human being. And then again, I would say Sydney Sweeney is probably a great human being, even though people are fucking harping on her for having MAGA hats at her mom's 60th birthday, which she probably had nothing to do with. So, thank you for your question, Phantom Avenger. Moving on to the fourth question of today, coming from the Ask Reddit subreddit from user Gerard_way_01, and they ask, have you ever held a grudge against a teacher you still think of today? How did they wrong you? To me, it's not really a real grudge, but it's something that I do still think about daily, where my French teacher was such a dick to me, and I don't know why. He was specifically a dick to me, where I would basically walk into the class, and then he would go, Djimon, why are you yelling? Go outside. And I'm just like, dude, the class hasn't even fucking started yet. Like, why the fuck are you sending me out? And like the first couple of weeks, I got in the class and sat there for like 10 minutes. And he was like, Djimon, you're talking too much. Go outside. And I'm just like, okay, well, what the fuck? And then eventually it turned into me walking into the class and basically grabbing my books and just walking outside because he didn't want me in there. I don't fucking know what the fuck was going on with that guy. On one side, like that, I still hold a grudge over that because in like 80% of the times that I got sent out of the classroom, I didn't do anything wrong. And I know that for a fact, I didn't do anything wrong. So that's why I am kind of have a grudge against that. On the other hand, at a certain point, I knew that I was going to get sent out of the classroom anyways. So I would just grab headphones and make sure that I had an iPod Touch back then. So make sure that I had my iPod Touch. And then I would sit there, wait for me to get sent out of the classroom, then do my homework that he said that he needed to do, and do that shit in like 5 or 10 minutes, and then just watch YouTube videos the other 30, and then walk in the final 10 minutes of the classroom to be like, hey, I've done my assignments and can I go home now? Basically. That's basically what I did, and I passed French, luckily, and watched a whole bunch of Minecraft YouTubers back then. So there was enough content for me to enjoy. So going back to the question, as by user Gerard underscore way underscore 00, have you ever held a grudge against a teacher you still think of today? How did they wrong you? Personally, again, it's a light grudge. I don't necessarily hold it like a very big grudge nowadays, but I still think it's a fucking bitch move for this fucking teacher to send me out of the classroom every fucking time I walked in by just saying something. Like I said, like, hey, how you doing? And he's like, Djimon, why are you yelling? Get the fuck out. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna take my fucking iPod and my headphones and I'm gonna just watch some YouTube. So joke's on you. Oh man, joke's on you. Thank you for your question, Gerard. And now moving on to the final question coming from the Ask Reddit subreddit, asked by user Angel O-B-G, I guess. You are the last person on Earth. What would be the first thing you do? This is a fun question, but also a very interesting one, because if I'm the last person on Earth, there's very little I can do. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, people are gonna think about, oh man, I'm gonna go to the cinema and I'm gonna watch every fucking movie that I can. And it's just like, well, I don't really fucking understand how the cinema fucking works. So that's not really gonna help me. I will probably go to the cinema and try. I will try to do something. If I'm the last person anyways, I'm gonna try and do stuff. But yeah, there is very little that I think that I would love to fucking sail a yacht or something like that. So like a big boat. And just go like, fuck it, we're just gonna sail the fucking yacht over the fucking high seas, baby, because nobody's gonna fucking stop me. I don't need the fucking license. I don't need to know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just gonna jump on and just do that shit. So I think that that would be my answer to you, Angel O-B-G. You are the last person on Earth. What would be the first thing you do? I would probably, grab a car at first. See if we can find the keys to like a sports car or something like that, because that would be fun to drive that. But the first thing, the first thing I would do is probably go to a cinema, maybe watch a movie. And after that, I would probably try and find a yacht we can sail around on, because that would be fun. Thank you for your question, Angel. And now moving on to the final question of today, coming from the MIDSO subreddit, asked by user SMD130R, and they ask, am I the asshole for refusing to dye my daughter's hair because her school complained? My daughter, 15, female, dyed her hair dark reddish brown for her birthday. I didn't let her dye her hair in middle school, but said she could in high school. The school has a dress code for hair that just specified natural hair colors only, which I took to mean browns, blondes, reds, blacks, etc., because natural tones. Her natural hair is black, but I don't think it's much of a change. The hairdresser that did the bleaching on her hair said that it was not lightened enough to cause significant damage. But then one of her teachers in the beginning of October last year began complaining to me during parent-teacher meetings that her hair didn't meet dress code. I said her hair color grew out of people's heads, so why was it out of the dress code? She told me that it was clearly not her natural color, and it shot back tons of her students that I saw that evening had blonde hair and highlights when they clearly were natural brunettes. She claimed they looked like they could be blonde, but my daughter's hair was supposed to be black. My daughter is Asian, so it's pretty racist to say that she can't dye her hair, and I brought it up with the principal, but he agreed with her, saying it was against the dress code. But I saw tons of white kids in the classroom with obviously brown hair that dyed it blonde and even red, but no one had said anything. They want me to darken her hair again so it looks natural. This went on until the end of the school year. I contacted the superintendent several times, but she never got back to me. It's almost the start of the school again, and I got an email from the principal reminding me that my daughter is only allowed black hair. She still had her reddish brown hair and doesn't want to dye it back. But I've tried to fight it, and the last thing to do is to barge into the superintendent's office and demand she get involved. Am I the asshole? I will say a very plain and simple answer. You're definitely not the asshole in this situation. This school has a dress code that is interesting, I guess. Like, I think that there are so many things that are interesting about this. Like, I have never heard of a school having a dress code for hair. And I guess that there is, especially nowadays where people have like pink hair and blue hair and green hair and whatever the fuck. I guess that is an issue. I don't know really why that would be an issue, but I guess that could be an issue for some sort of reason. So I guess that's why they did it. But then, yeah, having people complain for having like a reddish glow in their hair, that doesn't really make sense. Like, what the fuck, bro? She has brown hair with the reddish glow, and I've seen people have that hair on many different occasions. It's what the fuck? Like, if this is really what the school is fucking about, then on one side, I'm just like, well, I'm gonna just place her in a different school because this is some fucking bullshit. Like, in all honesty, it is such a fucking bullshit excuse that, yeah, like you're saying, there are people that have brown hair that get their hair or like bleach blonde, and there are people that have brown hair that get highlighted and whatever the fuck. Like, that's not natural. That's all dyed and everything. So why the fuck is your daughter not allowed to do that? Only because she has black hair and she's Asian. That's legitimately only the reason. Like, she's Asian, so she's supposed to have black hair. Like, on one side, you should just be to your daughter, like, hey, just fucking dye your hand blonde. Just do it. See what the fuck happens. Because if they're gonna go like, hey, you're not allowed to have blonde hair, it's like, why the fuck are they allowed to have blonde hair then? Like, I did the red hair, maybe we can make an argument for that, but now you're saying that people cannot dye their hand blonde? Well, are we gonna say something about all these blonde bitches here? Because they definitely bleached their hair, and they definitely got some blonde fucking dye in there. Just saying, you dumb fuck. So yeah, that would be an option for you to do. But personally, I would say SMD 130 or MIDSO for refusing to dye my daughter's hair because her school complained. You're definitely not the asshole. The school is really weird and trying to fuck with you in some sort of way. I don't know why they're doing that, but they clearly are. And I think that is very annoying. And I think that they're just being absolute fucking dicks to you. And I think that it is a very smart idea to just barge into the superintendent's office and see what the fuck they can do for you. Thank you for your question. And that is going to be it for me for this week. I hope you had a good time. If you did, please leave a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts because both places give you the ability to leave a rating. And if you do, I might read your rating on this right here show. You can find this show on basically all podcast platforms, but you can go to anchor.fm/didn't-ask-that-pod. That link will be in the show description. Over here, you can find all the platforms that podcast is available on, like Spotify, like Podcast Addict, like Pocket Cast, like Amazon Podcast, like Apple Podcast, you name it, this podcast is there. If it's not, you can go to the anchor.fm website and press message and tell me where it's not. Via that message button, you can also ask me a personal question. It gives you the ability to record a voice memo for me so I can play that in this show right here. If you don't want your voice to be heard on this right here show, I can totally understand that. Just say that somewhere in your message and then I'll make your question anonymous by reading it out myself. Well, that's going to do it for me for this week. I hope to see you back next week. And if you want to know what I'm doing in the meantime, you can go to trek.tv. That link will be in the show description as well. Over here, you can see all the TV shows and movies that I'm watching, sometimes while I'm watching them, so you can ask me a question about that and keep up with all the TV shows and movies that I'm watching right now. I'm currently going through the Halloween franchise, which is fun, going through the Rocky franchise, which is fun. We are enjoying High School Musical, the musical, the series, season 3, which is absolutely banger so far. We have so many things still to come. She-Hulk is here. We're gonna get Andor very soon. So many things to keep up with. So go to trek.tv to see what I'm up to. Well, that's gonna do it for me for now. I hope to see you back next week. Thanks for listening and goodbye.